David Guerrero, so lovely to see you again. Thank you for making the time. Just, I think, what are we today? The third, nearly May. God.
That's right. That's right. April 26th.
Yeah, just before Christmas last year. Thank you so much for making the time to chat to me. I just wanted to provide some context for anyone who doesn't happen to know who you are. You're the founder, chairman, and CCO of BBDO Guerrero that you founded in 1998. You have an incredible range of work that you've done over the past couple of decades, from social movements to helping contribute to the economic growth of industries, and to some things that are just ridiculously funny and hilarious and entertaining. You've won hundreds of international and local awards for creativity and effectiveness, everything from Cannes, DNAD, One Show, Clio's, WARC, and you have a global reputation for being the one that put the Philippines on the map in terms of advertising. You're the first Filipino agency in the top 50 of the Gun Report, the first SCA jury president at Cannes, and you're also a chairman of the 4As. And despite all of that, you're just a delightful, pleasant, awesome human being. I thoroughly enjoyed my time working with you. I miss it, actually. I miss you. I miss your team. It made working in advertising fun again for me, working with you. So
thanks, Jen. That was very generous.
No, you're a wonderful human, and you're incredibly talented, obviously, as well. And I just wanted to give people a snapshot into the amazing spectrum of work you've done over the past few decades. So I think obviously your first big break was with the Visa campaign that rolled out in over 12 markets with the Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and Memoirs of a Geisha Star, Zhang Ji. Which is a very humorous kind of comical narrative set in a restaurant. And then obviously there was the very famous Pantene, Don't Let Labels Hold You Back, which basically kicked off the global narrative for gender equality. And you had Sheryl Sandberg campaigning for you guys for more work like this, which is the reason why we have a glass Cannes lion, which no one really knows about, which is a pretty neat story that I'm going to ask you a little bit more about in a second. There's also the Pepsi Leader of Light, which you did in collaboration with the UN Development Programme and My Shelter, where you converted Pepsi bottles into 10 hours of daylight through solar panels, which rolled out in 15 countries, including 1 million houses across the Philippines, Pakistan, Latin America, Egypt, and India. And then also another globally famous campaign for the Department of Philippines. Is that right? Department of Tourism.
Tourism, yeah.
The Philippines, where you broke all the traditional tourism formulas, had zero media dollars, and achieved the highest number of tourist arrivals ever. And you also had hotel owners hugging you because of the work that it had brought to the Philippines and how much they loved the campaign. And then you also did something for to raise awareness for charitable efforts for Typhoon Yolanda, called the Unselfie campaign, which I believe John Kerry participated in, which is the US Secretary of State at the time. And then you've also done some really fun stuff for a brand I really love called Spam, where you were called Recipoke, where you had the recipe, you had the recipes sung in the lyrics of various genres. And you just recently picked up a Clio as well for a really incredible campaign called Font Book, if I'm correct.
That's right. Hey, thank you. I won't deny any of that. Thank you. That's great. I'm happy.
Pony. I mean, there's a lot of range in that work. You know, everything from comedy to social impact to social, I guess, social issues, as well as like tourism, charity work, and just, fun spam stuff. And I was just wondering, like, is there any sort of, like, everyone always loves the behind the scenes, or, the stories that sort of go behind these campaigns. Are there any in particular that sort of spring to mind when I rattle these off?
Well, thanks. Well, I mean, the first thing I wanted to say was maybe how, you end up doing such a range of things. And maybe it's because you start off in London as a student going around with your book, and you try and get a placement, which is what it was at the time. And you don't have any other way into the industry other than going around and showing your book to creative teams, and creative teams will give you a crit, as it were, and they will tell you what's good and what's bad, and then you'll go and see another creative team, and they'll tell you a completely different set of things, and you'll have to somehow work it out. So that's how I started off, and just started off in that tradition of the D&AD workshops and going around agencies in London, and did that for 3 years. This is a complete behind the scenes, by the way. So then we with my partner at the time, a guy called Chris Bleakley, and weirdly, some of the people I met then I came across later in my career. So my first placement was at Ogilvy and Mather Direct. Met Andy Greenaway was there at that time, and just kind of noticing how different people intersected at different places. But anyway, we worked in London for a while, and then I think the recession hit 1990, and then we were let go by the agency we were in, and it was, we were the last people to be let go, probably because we were the cheapest, but we were definitely let go at that time. And then so I came out to Asia, worked, well, actually kind of, wondered how I could work in the Philippines, and realized it wasn't easy. I mean, it's hilariously, I think now, I went around to some Philippine agencies and tried to get a job with my London book, and it had very pleasant conversations, but there was nothing doing really, which was interesting. And then anyway, so I noticed or was aware of Hong Kong advertising, went to work in Hong Kong, and which was, really amazing time and place that time, and got a real introduction to Asian advertising, and just started becoming, deciding that this is where I would stay. And then, cut a long story short, I guess I got at some point, Ogilvy in the Philippines needed an ECD, and I was interviewed by Neil French at the time, who in his bathrobe at the Conrad Hotel. I turned up for an interview. It was the morning, and and he's it was like, hold on, he's still got his bathrobe on. And anyway, so that was luckily, I think I was on a kind of short list of one of people that they wanted, and people that were actually eligible to work in the Philippines. So I had this
I think it was more than yeah.
Which is great. So that worked out. And then after 3 years in Ogilvy, then got a call from Dave Albertson, who was then running BBDO regionally, and somehow we worked out this deal, and the result was starting an agency at the age of 36, 37. So that was an interesting, it was a great place to be. And then we just had a lot of fun, made a lot of mistakes, probably didn't really make very much money at all, I think, in the first years, but just really was focused on, the work, and it was good. And I mean, it was good. It was a good experience. I mean, and it was a good, fun time. And I think I forged a lot of connections there with the people that I still work with, across the industry now, and we still are friends, even though obviously many have gone on to other things. So that's how we started. And then I think so the root of how we ended up doing all these different campaigns is partly due to the multinational clients of BBDO, who we have the great privilege, I guess, to work on. They come in, and some of these jobs were regional jobs, like the visa one you mentioned, and in the case of that one, it was a pitch originally for visa, and that which was didn't have an easy birth anyway. It was one of those very difficult pitches, and as I guess maybe all pitches are, but it was long and it was extended. But when it was in, and then we started making this production, and I was still, again, I think it ballooned quite rapidly into quite a big budget thing, and I think it made a lot of the suits quite nervous that there was this guy in the Philippines that was doing this multi-million campaign, and so they brought in a minder for me as well. They got some guy somewhere else from the network who was like kind of just, I'm just here if you need me kind of thing, but he's like, but we made it, and it was great. I mean, we made it. It was being shot right around the time of 9/11 as well. I remember traveling to Hong Kong for the shoot, and I was the only person on the plane because nobody. It was a bit like today, perhaps, but nobody wanted to fly at that time. So yeah, so that was a break and just a good experience, and I think that just made the idea that good ideas can come from anywhere, or that you don't need to have a sort of that it can. I mean, regional campaigns can be sourced out of any country, and just depends on what it is, where it is. So
yeah,
so
that was quite a coup, right? Because normally, like, regional campaigns historically come from different epicenters, not the Philippines. And I think
that's right.
Stardom when you shot with her, the visa campaign.
Yeah. No, it was. I mean, also it was something that worked for. I learned a lot just about how advertising works in Asia generally. That there are very few celebrities that travel all the way across. They wanted the power of a celebrity, but there are very few that travel, and really only Western celebrities, weirdly, can be agreed upon by across Asian cultures. And it's only Western celebrities or Asian celebrities who, in the sense of, proved it in the West as well. So you could have had Jackie Chan, or you could have had Jet Li at that time. I think Zhang Ziyi was the one who we could use because she'd broken through and had been recognized. But that was just an interesting learning about Pan-Asian work that you, at that time at least, you didn't really have the sense of a great unity across the continent. It's just that people did agree on Hollywood.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I was going to say, because that's obviously, like, she was a very popular celebrity at the time. So I think that obviously, I mean, the narrative, the creative idea is in and of itself was good, and it was humorous. And so, but I think she added to that. So
completely. Yeah.
And that's when it makes sense to use a celebrity, because it amplifies the work rather than becomes the work. But that was sort of, I guess, a more traditional, and it's your first big break as well, I think, as BBDO Guerrero. So, like, I guess a bit more of a traditional advertising construct. Contrast that to something like Pantene, which I guess was also still quite a traditional construct. But did you expect it to have the global impact that it did? Because, like, it literally, I think it was the hashtag with it, like, went like wildfire around the world. And, Sheryl Sandberg was calling you up, apparently. Conversation with you. There's a new category at Cannes. Because of this ad, that she wanted more of this work to continue in the future. Did you expect it to do that when you were making the work, are there any other insights?
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, and it was. I mean, what the thing about that was we weren't their regular agency, and I forget how we got this job, but I think at that time BBDO was kind of on the roster of P&G, but didn't actually have any kind of account. So we were just there. And then this came in, and I think we had, they had a very good, there's a very good client involved who was pushing for something new, different, something good that would be, that would really make a difference. And I think that obviously you can't do it without a client like that. So, and he's gone on to other wonderful things. He went on to Airbnb, and now he's kind of very high up in a bank here. So he did really well from it, I think. And again, so all credit to the client at that point to make it happen. And then the team really, I think the planning that we had uncovered this tension very clearly. I think our planner, who is also our planner on It's More Fun in the Philippines, Christina Buenaventura, says she did an amazing work, an amazing piece of just a kind of analysis of that tension between what between men and women doing the same things and being labeled differently, and this is the core of that idea. And then as it happens when there is a good idea, a lot of good things come together. So it just so happened there was a director coming through who was able to take it on, and there was again, we couldn't have planned this at all, but the final lead character, the sort of that was in the commercial, went on to be Miss Universe, which I don't know quite what that says about, you know, feminist empowerment or whatever, but that was how she was such a, you know, obviously a very striking, you know, sort of figurehead for the whole thing. So that was yeah, I mean, and maybe it just, yeah, I mean, obviously we had no idea that would happen, but they backed us up all the way, and they even licensed the Mad World track from Tears for Fears, which we then remade in the Philippines, and that was a big deal. I mean, and I think the one thing that happened is that they originally were only going to license it for the Philippines, and then they had to license it globally all of a sudden. So that, but again, they didn't flinch, and they backed it up all the way, and that really made a difference to that as well.
Yeah, because there was just a beautiful simplicity in the observation and how you kind of executed it, that I think it's why it resonated in so many different markets around the world. Because I remember being in BBDO in Melbourne at the time. We didn't know each other, but I've never had an ad sent to me more from friends, you know, in different markets like the US, UK. They're like, check this out. And I think there's because advertising can get criticized for just being flipsy and whatever, but it's like when it's used in the right way, it can actually really contribute to important social conversations. Because I think it was something obviously that was very felt by so many people around the world, but I think the way that you captured it in that 30-second or whatever it was narrative just really said so much in so little time. So I think it kind of talks to, or it's a perfect example of what advertising can do. And it's not to say it always has to be purposeful and serious, but the whole point of advertising is to convey a message and elicit a behavior, a response, or an attitude shift. And like, I always remember that ad, and even now when I mention it to people, everyone remembers it. Everyone remembers it. I love it.
We're obviously very, very, you know, thank you for that. We're very proud of having done it. I think it's yeah, I mean, maybe something does, you know, advertising can articulate things that people are thinking sometimes in a way, in a powerful way, and we don't always know about. I think, you know, it takes that confluence of timing and what's unexpressed. You know, the things that are unexpressed in the culture that need expression at a moment. That's the, you know, that's, and if you can do that at the time and in a way that people latch onto, then that's great. I think you know, in a way, the same thing happened with tourism. You know, there was an unexpressed desire among Filipinos to say what was good about the country. There was an unexpressed, you know, frustration, I think, on social media to say, you know, look, we're here and we see all this criticism. What can we do? What can we rally around? And what will actually not get punctured by the first contact with reality as well, which is the other thing, because you can say this is paradise, blah, 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 but actually you come, you know, the minute it isn't, then you know, that's all gone. So, I mean, again, it's all the client, because the client was very clear about, you know, at that time, the issue with the Philippines was there was supposed to be a new airport that was built, and it had been built, but it was not yet open because of some legal argument. So this brand new airport was finished, but it couldn't be used. So people still had to go through the old airport. The old airport was later listed as being, you know, again on some obscure website, but it's like the worst airport in the world kind of thing. So there was all this stuff that was going on, and you know, he was just saying, look, but what we do have is this incredibly active and engaged population on social media. We have people, you know, a very warm disposition towards, I mean, a very welcoming, warm disposition. So we always want to talk things up, but we just need something to rally around. So the thing about, you know, it's more fun in the Philippines was just coming from, it was coming out of the truth of you know, a lot of the things that even you do on holiday are more fun when people around you are more welcoming, so, and more helpful. So I mean, and this insight literally came to me when I was and it was another weekend again before the pitch, and we had taken a break and gone down to the beach and gone diving, and I'm not a good diver at all. I just about scraped through my license. I don't know how. And I was with my son, and so we were there. Who was maybe, I don't know, 12 or something at the time, and so we were there trying to put on scuba gear and straps and everything, putting everything on wrongly, and then people on the boat started helping, or someone was there to help, and so that was like, I just think it's a lot more fun doing this here than it would be doing it in the North Sea in England or something, or doing it in some godforsaken environment, so where not only would it be freezing and cold, but also nobody would think it their job to help you put the strap on. So all of that. So I just kind of thought this idea just as we're plunging in, and I was like desperate to get out so I could write it down somewhere, so anyway, so I was repeating it to myself as we were doing the dive, and then so as soon as I got out, I was like scrambling for a pen to scribble this down. So that was that became the line. But it was and then I think people really were frustrated by what was going on at that time, the previous whatever campaign they hadn't liked. So this took off when it was launched. But again, it's all to do with an amazing client partnership that you sometimes have, and sometimes, and they're not all the same. Some clients are, very engaged, very hands-on. Some are very, sort of keep their distance. And it could all work. It's just you just don't know, that there will just come a moment where it all comes together. Yeah. You just have to be ready for it.
Totally. But I mean, the unifying truth is it takes two to tango, and you definitely, I mean, we've been lucky as well to have good client partnerships when we work together, but you're right, it doesn't need to look the same, but it definitely needs to be a partnership from both ends, because you have the best campaign in the world but if there's a client that's not willing to sort of go to the wall with you, like you had with Pantene, kind of on the cutting room floor, I guess, so to speak.
But I think the best, those best relationships are not just like they'll see your brilliance or whatever, but they actually shape. But there's a kind of there's something that goes on. There's a dialogue going on between you and the client that kind of shapes it and makes it better. So it isn't just a like, here it is, and that guys not. I mean, those clients can be good, but sometimes that doesn't work out well either, when somebody just says, do what you like. And I'll just, that doesn't, because then it's like, well, I don't really know enough about, your, where you're coming from and what you're trying to do. So you really need that engagement, but constructive engagement.
Yeah. Like you mentioned as well previously that you always felt like it was your destiny to come back to the Philippines. Obviously, you've got you're half British, half Filipino, and you studied and you did a lot of time in London. Is that right?
Did time, yeah.
You did time, yeah. Time in London. You always thought it was your destiny to come back to the Philippines. And I'm wondering if you could expand a little bit on why that was.
I think I was driven by curiosity, number one. I mean, driven by curiosity, because if you're half anything, you're always going to be wondering what the other half is, because I'm half Filipino, half British, and I've grown up in England most of my life, and I didn't go to the Philippines until I was 18. So and just under, maybe even 19, just having left school, and so only then do you get a picture. There's this. This is the other half of your heritage, your background, and so you want to pursue that, and I've read other people try to do that, and try to pursue their other half, and then finding that it's not, that they're not that, and they really belong to their first culture. And I think I almost experienced the same kind of feeling, but then I thought, well, there's enough that's drawing me back, and I think there was something to do, number one, with what my dad had done, and he was a writer, he was biographer. He, among other things, but there was enough people who knew him, in a positive way, that just said, "Oh, you're his son," and that's all I would ever be, in their eyes. And so I thought, well, I'll come back and see if I can do something to build on, not really to build on his legacy, but just to, I don't know, try and make a contribution to this country.
Sorry, keep going.
No, I mean, that was it really. I mean, just try and make a contribution, and also because, again, maybe there's more to give if there's more that's needed, or and there seem to be more to give here, or more opportunities to give. So if I can give more, then it will be more satisfying, I guess, to work here. So that was it. But it wasn't, even if I made that decision or wanted that, it wasn't that easy, because then, like, there's no automatic job that opens up for, oh, you're you're half Filipino, come here, and you have no experience here, and you don't know anyone, and you can't speak the language. So yeah, no, there's no real automatic way in. No. And especially unless you're going to be a I don't know, development worker, banker or something, but that's it.
Well, you obviously
obviously
made it work. You've got a successful agency, internationally awarded agency that's been going for a couple of decades. So you obviously found a way.
But I think this is the great thing about advertising. This is one of the unsung, wonderful things about advertising, is it has the fewest barriers to entry. It doesn't have. You can do it anywhere in the world. You can even, it's about ideas, and it's based on merit to a larger extent than any other, major activity, I think. I mean, if you look at all the other kind of jobs that you might aspire to in, I don't know, law, banking, medicine, everything, they're all very, even architecture, they're very protected. You have to qualify in a certain country. You can't practice in another country. Helps if you know people, helps if you have a lot of money, all these things, but whereas advertising, it's not, we're not immune to that, but we do have more than most jobs. This is a profession where you can be good at what you do, and you will be recognized and paid for it.
Yeah, and I think certainly, I don't know if it is a fair observation or not, but I would say that Filipino culture is inherently very creative. I mean, if you look at a lot of Filipinos in the world that people don't necessarily know Filipino, like Bruno Mars, Vanessa Hudson, there's a very senior, I think, art director that has done a lot of Pixar films like Ratatouille, and like you say, in advertising, that's inherently creative as well. But Filipinos tend to be a lot more understated on the global stage. But I think in the past 5 years, I've seen more and more prominent, I guess, Filipinos, I think, in the creative and the advertising industry. Do you think that has something, is there something going on with like a reclamation of national identity for Filipinos? I'm certainly seeing some of that play out in social medias like TikTok. There's a lot of creators starting to kind of really lean back into Filipino heritage, and sort of talking about the fact that, it's a very, even before all the people came to colonize you guys, like the Spanish and the US and the Japanese, it was a very rich culture and diverse culture anyway. You've got 100 ways to say maybe in Tagalog. Concept of bakla, which is a third gendered culture. And just all the usual stereotypes of inclusive and friendly and things like that. But have you noticed a shift in recent years as to why there is, I guess, a lot more of a prominence of Filipinos in advertising and creativity?
Well, that's definitely true. It's definitely happened, and we have a Filipino global chief creative officer in Merle Jaime with Dentsu, and we have D&AD jury foreman. We have different Filipinos coming up in all kinds of areas in our business, and so that's definitely happening. I think what the reasons maybe because there's now more voices being heard, perhaps more areas of expression, like you say, more platforms. There is then just, I think the bigger thing is the greater self-confidence that is coming through from just seeing the more people do something, the more other people get inspired to do it. So I think you've definitely got a good sort of what's the word, sort of pinwheel or that kind of that wheel of things getting better.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, you mean
I know what you mean.
the circle, the virtuous circle of something good happening and more people seeing it and they do it as well. So that's happening, and I think it's a lot to do with also just increased prosperity and development. Because when more people have more time to think and more time to express themselves, then the range of expressions gets better, and so I think that's what's happening.
Yeah, I find with creativity, when I worked with your team and stuff, it's always like a delight because you never know what you're going to get. It's very it could be anything, like in terms of like very multi-dimensional and stuff like that. And I just wonder where that aperture comes from, because normally you can get used to certain markets or cultures developing a certain tonal style of work, regardless of category. But I've always found with the Philippines, it could be, humor, or could be very serious, or it could be very, I don't know. Is that something that you think that's inherent to the culture, or did you guys just have a really shit hot team?
So I think the reason why it's getting better is because you're seeing people are paying more attention to what's being done outside as well. And I think they're also, because you can't be, creative on your own. You can only be creative in conversation or an awareness of what else is going on in the world. So I think with the barrier traditionally was that Filipinos were less exposed to the whole range of what's going on in the culture because of distance and because of accessibility and what's there. And actually, weirdly now, with how everything has become online, it's now also made the world more flat. You now have events that would have been closed to participants in a particular geography are now open to anyone anywhere. So that's actually interesting, kind of democratized the whole thing of geography now, and so I think because people are seeing more things, they're being part of more things, then they are better at adapting their ideas or expressing their ideas in a way that is original, because the curse of creativity is accidental coincidence, things that seem the same that might have been done elsewhere, but because people are isolated from it, or they don't know it, it's just they don't realize that they're repeating something, or they don't realize that they need to be part of some current conversation.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably why it's getting better, but I think that's how it will continue to get better as well. I think is that we'll have to keep on being engaged, and more people will have to have the time and resources to be engaged, because it does take time.
It does take time. And then I was wondering as well, in terms of your approach to creativity, you did a presentation at Spikes with Sin Music about the role of music in social movements, and you touched on songs from Aretha Franklin, Lady Gaga, Childish Gambino, and Bob Dylan. And obviously, music is something that transcends boundaries and cultures, fairly easily, even if you don't necessarily understand the language. I was just wondering, in terms of how you approach creativity or come up with ideas, are there other cultural signposts or cues that you look for in order to help work travel, given that you have such a large, I guess you do a lot of regional work from BBDO Guerrero? Are there other things apart from music that you use?
The answer is that it comes out of some genuine experience and some expression that you want to that needs to be articulated, and that when it's articulated, people say, "Oh yeah, I was thinking that," or That's something that I can relate to, or that's something that I think is, I don't know, that I can agree with. I mean, and maybe, most importantly, that's something I haven't seen expressed that way before, and I think this is why it's funny. I mean, because why does, I think people can sometimes question, why are we so relentlessly looking for new things? Why are we always trying to do new stuff as opposed to just doing the stuff that's always worked, right? And then clients can ask this. Sometimes suits can ask this too, but they'll say, why do you have to change it? Just keep doing the same thing. And we only respond to new things. I mean, we respond best as people to new things. We seek novelty, we seek originality. We need to have that. Otherwise, it's just not interesting. So that's why that should drive every creative department and every agency, is what are you doing and saying that's new and hasn't been said, at least in that way before.
Oh yeah. And I wanted to ask you as well, in terms of, like, obviously coming out of COVID, clients are more stressed than ever before. They've got less budgets. They've got everything's a must-win plan. A lot of them are starting to bring resources in-house, create their own creative departments. You've mentioned previously you still think advertising agencies are the best place to nurture creative talent. And I was wondering if you could expand on that a little bit. Like, I sort of know the answer, but I just love for people to hear it, because I think it's a common misconception right now for some clients that they can just bring this craft in-house and attract the right talent. Whereas I know, with what you do and the people that you have in there, that's not possible. And I'm happy to say that to clients, that they're dreaming if they think that they can replicate an agency's talent in their in-house capability, or even at a platform, because I know they're also racing as well to do a lot of purpose work. And
right.
Diversity and inclusion is becoming more and more important. And you're essentially the Filipino Black Panther. You've got an army of amazing women sort of running your show, from Francine, your CEO, to Karen and Angelica and Rosh, and your wife, Angel, who runs Adobo. So I think that there's an incredible richness of talent in and around you, and then also your creative teams and things like that. I was just wondering if you could expand a little bit on why, from your perspective, agencies are still going to be the bastions of creative talent and output versus in-house offerings or platform offerings.
Yeah. No, I think, look, first of all, we are dedicated. I mean, agencies are dedicated to talent. I mean, and I think that's our purpose. That's our reason for being, is to provide a place for people to do their best work. So if we can, relentlessly do that, nurture, collaborate, educate, and then offer that service to clients, then they're not going to get a better place they're not going to get better access to the most, I suppose, I wouldn't even say that they're in, the most, I guess it's the most accessible form of great talent that there can be, because it isn't just about the raw ideas. It is about how do you nurture and cultivate and refine and develop and get it to the level of polish, because there's this thing that everyone can have ideas, everyone's creative, and it's true, but and let's all celebrate that, but I do think there is a very different job in perfecting an idea, getting it to a point where it really expresses what you want it to express, and too often, because of and sometimes rightly, because otherwise nothing would ever get done, things are taken out of, they're ripped out of the pad before, while the guy's still writing on it, and it's gone, but that has to go, because it's like that quote that Andrew likes to say, Saturday Night Live isn't the jokes aren't, it doesn't go out when the jokes are ready. It goes out because it's 10:30 on a Saturday night, and that's it. And you do have to get the stuff out.
Yeah.
But you're more likely to get better stuff. And by better stuff, we mean stuff that more people is going to have more impact, and stuff that people are going to have more engagement with, and stuff that's going to build a loved brand. All of that stuff is much more likely to come out of people who are motivated by excellence and motivated by the desire to do something that they feel expresses what they want to do and what they want to be. So I think it's about nurturing the craft within a commercial context. Now, of course, it still sounds like it just does sound a bit idealistic what I'm saying, but it's still obviously housed within the structures of a business, a business that has monthly reports, a business that needs to provide a return on investment, blah blah blah. But it still has, it's a business that, or it's an offering, it's a service that can create, exponential amounts of return.
Yeah.
In the right. So basically, I mean, and I don't think agencies ever even say this enough, but if we get it right, we can make miracles. We can have huge impact for small investments. Of course, if we get it wrong, or if we get it average, then we're still going to have a base level of I was giving a talk to some clients actually, and they were saying that, even just putting your logo up on a billboard is still going to work. I mean, even just that is still, you're still going to get a basic level of return. All advertising works to some extent, but it's about, it's about how do you get those outsized returns? How do you get those exponential, game-changing returns? And that's only, it's not only, but it's more likely perhaps to come out of a dedicated team.
I think what's underestimated, I think, with creativity is that it's not an ATM process and it's not linear. So unless you've got the right infrastructure in terms of the processes and the experts and the people and the environment to sort of cultivate that and draw it out from individuals, you're literally going to, basically get AI creativity without, the experts like yourselves around there to discern and the direction that it should evolve, because anyone that's in the industry of creativity or advertising knows it's iterative. And sometimes you go down cul-de-sacs and come back and you've got to start again. And it's really, I don't know, it's an intangible sort of craft that I think is underestimated by clients that are trying to save money by replicate certain creativity. You probably don't need too much of. I think
it's the objectivity that you pay for as well, because at least an agency has a certain distance from the brand that it's servicing or working with or whatever it is. But it is objective, at least in the sense of, well, we don't see it that way, or that's not how it appears outside. Because I've had that. I've had the experience of working almost in-house with a dedicated team that was only working on Cathay Pacific. We were working on this one airline for a year, and after a while, everyone started to think like, I mean, and not to say that they haven't done great work, but it's just that there is a little, for me anyway, there's a little bit of a group think that begins to start.
That's true. I think that's what keeps you on the leading edge, right? When you're constantly, I guess, you don't have echo chambers around you. Like, you're constantly solving different problems and working with different teams. You're more likely to get to more interesting and innovative solutions. Yeah. And I was just wondering as well, in terms of so obviously you're so well respected and regarded within the industry and outside of the industry, and there's a lot of young people coming through as well. Do you have any advice, particularly for junior creatives that are trying to make their mark like you did all the way back then, traipsing around with your folio, about how to, because there's I guess, because of the economic pressure of the market and the environment, there is a pressure from clients to deliver a certain type of creativity, which can be very frustrating for creatives who are trying to find their own style and their own voice, and also make their mark on the world in the way that they want to, not just have it, squashed into a can. Do you have any advice for them about how to sort of, I guess, do that? Like, be true to themselves, but still kind of, I guess, be employable.
Yeah, sure. No, I mean, I think first of all, they to be reassured that I think the worry for advertisers, people in advertising agencies, is are people interested in going to advertising anymore? Because people are worried about there's, I mean, the opposite view as well. There's so many options for young creative talent. They go into startups, they could go into, I don't know, tech. There's all these other things that we worry that they will go into. But actually, I think so. It's important. I think first of all, if you want to get into advertising, make people in advertising know that you want to get into advertising. So it really needs to be like, yes, a kind of focused ambition, I feel. We don't really, we'll probably lose interest the moment someone says, well, I'm looking at this, I'm looking at that. It has, you've got to be, you've got to know what you want. The other thing is just, consume vast amounts of good advertising. And I think this will take a dedicated program of, getting access to can winners, getting access to, or just going on to the websites of leading agencies or following them on Twitter, or just finding out, but only look at the good stuff, right? Try and do that.
With people like you, I always find that are great creatives and also just wonderful human beings, is that you're just creative by nature. So you're also writing a book on the side, I understand, called something to do with the Beatles coming to Manila, which David Eggers describes as a side door to history. So you always guess creatives are just creative by nature anyway. So if they're not working on advertising, they're doing something else on the side to kind of feed their creative soul. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about side projects as a creative, and in particular that one as well, a little bit about this book and why you decided to write it.
Okay, thanks, Jen. I feel I'm doing more promotion for this book than actually writing it at the moment. But I am. It came out. It was an idea that came out of our work for tourism, and when we were, one of the things we were looking at was how do you make a connection? How do you get people in the West to connect with the Philippines, and what possible thing can they latch onto? And part of this was looking at what famous people have been here, and one of them was the Beatles in 1966. And the reason it's not very well known, other than to real Beatles aficionados, of which there are many, I'm discovering. But there is, it was a kind of action-packed incident. They were basically here for 48 hours, and 2 nights and 2 half days and a full day. And they played the biggest concert of their careers. They played, in 2 shows, 80,000 people came to watch them. It was the biggest crowd they had in a single day. But nobody remembers any of that, because what happened is they were invited to lunch at the palace by a newly arrived First Lady called Imelda Marcos, who had just moved in. And this was her first big, this was supposed to be her first big gathering, and she invited all her friends. And anyway, it's kind of a long story short, the Beatles didn't show up, and this put her nose out of joint, to say the least. And then we then had the spectacle the next day was a bunch of guys turned up at the airport and sort of jostled the band as they, and the crew, and sort of roughed them up as they left. So it turned into this giant international incident of Beatles. Well, first of all, Beatles snub president, and then Beatles manhandled at airport. So there was this huge sort of scandal at the time, which has meant that it's kind of been, it's not a topic that's often talked about here, and it's not really much talked about in Beatles lore either, other than something bad happened in Manila, and then from here it's like something bad happened when the Beatles came. But I just think it's interesting to re-look at that now and just see what really happened, and what do we learn from it? What do we learn about celebrity, politicians? What do we learn about how we look at a country like the Philippines? What do we learn about how the Philippines looked at the UK. So just that, and it's kind of just I think it's important to, I think it'll do a job in the end that short form advertising cannot, which is to go in depth into a topic. I'm still looking at see if I can squeeze it into some kind of, you know, branded content category and can. Don't worry, I'm not like
your creative just can work that out.
So saying, can we make a Netflix documentary out of it, you know? But I'm kind of.
This is what I mean about Filipinos. You guys are always looking at things from like an angle that no one's ever thought of. Like, I love it.
But yeah, I think sometimes you got to follow what interests you and see what it becomes.
Yeah.
And you know, who knows? But that's I'm working on that as a long. I'd like it as a long copy project. You know, it's probably about 80,000 words, something like that. But you know, just more copy than I've ever written in my life. But it's but you know, that's the plan, and I'm just I've got some friends and mentors keeping me on track, so I'm seeing if I can get it done before I'm 64. That's the plan.
Yeah. And do you find, or do you even have time? Do you find it's important to have a gear outside of advertising, like your own outlet for creativity, or is it just
No, I think advertising can basically take everything you've got in terms of creativity. Just that sometimes it really can. Yeah, but you know, but sometimes, so actually your time outside needs to be just focused on being
what we love,
or just taking care of yourself. Just staying healthy and fit as you can, you know, in this difficult age, you know. But we. So I focus on that a lot. But the rest of the time. Yeah, no, I don't feel I'm you know, stepping away from advertising anyway. I just feel like this is part of what's happened over the last 20 years, which is that advertising stopped being about ads and it started being about, you know, this whole kind of, it's basically become everything. It's become everything could be an ad. It doesn't mean that everything should be an ad, but everything, you know, but we're not limited to just one, or you know, 3 or 4 set modes of expression. Not everything has to be a 30-second commercial, and everything has to be, you know, whatever it used to be. But now we can make anything into an ad. So we might as well make something we like.
right?
You know? Yeah.
Okay. Well, David, I hope you stay healthy, and I hope you keep doing your side projects, because I'm sure there's more incredible work on the way in the coming year. I'm conscious of your time.
Thank you, and you too. You know, it's been a real pleasure. Thanks for doing this.
Oh, it's so great to speak to you, and yeah, please say hi to all the gang, and I really appreciate
Will
your
do.
and all of your insights, and I look forward to hopefully visiting you in person one day in the next few years.
Yes, that'd be great. Well, I hope we open up before too long.
Exactly, and I look forward to what you guys do this year.
Thanks, Jen.
Thanks, David. See you soon.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.